Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend the training today. My name is Kathy Sue. I'm the Contracts Assistant 2. In our back row is Estelita Pomara. She's our Contracts Assistant 1. We're from the contracting section in the State Engineering Office. And Colonel Mitsuyoshi, her boss, is in the back row also. First of all, is everyone signed in? And does everyone have a copy of the handouts? If not, they're on the table. Help yourself. There's also pens and highlighters on the table if you need to borrow some. Please put your phones on vibrate. If you need to take a call, please step out into the hall. You may have noticed Jeff Hickman and Andy Jackson and all their nice equipment. This training will be recorded and the link will be posted on the DOD website. If you have any questions, I'll repeat it for the recording. For those of you not familiar with our building, the restrooms are out this door, excuse me, to the left through the double doors, down the hallway on the right. Okay, can I see a show of hands of who here are fund managers? 1, 2, 3. That's it, 3? Okay, how many are project managers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow. Okay, and fiscal personnel? Okay, thank you. For the divisions, how many are from high EMA? 2, 3. OVS? None from OVS. Anyone from Air Guard? Nope. Army Guard. The whole section. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Anyone from Youth Challenge? Nope. And Homeland Security? Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Okay, the purpose of this training is to give everyone an overview of state contracting, what's required, who's responsible for what, and why it takes so long to create a contract. For the federal contracting process, you would go through the USPFO. This training today will focus on state contracting only. This training is to help you become familiar with the contracting process. We'll be talking about procedures, requirements, flowcharts, timelines, and the contract request form, or CRF. We've created procedures to move the CRF through the e-signature process, which has now cut down the processing time from over 2 weeks to an average of 8 to 9 days. At this time, due to legal issues, notary and bond requirements, the contract itself cannot be done electronically, so it also has to go around for original wet signatures. This training is also to help you become familiar with the Hawaii Revised Statutes, the HRS 103D, and the Hawaii Administrative Rules, HAR 3-122. These are the procurement laws and administrative rules of state contracting. It's also to help you to know where to get information and references, to go over changes in the state contracting since the last training, and to highlight problem areas and common mistakes. We're not trying to make you contracting experts, but you should be familiar with the contracting procedures. It will make your jobs and our jobs much easier. The agenda training portion is broken down into 6 sections. We have general information, state procurement requirements, basics of a project, contract process, tools, and questions and comments. The class should take about 1.5 to 2 hours, so we may take a break at about 10 o'clock or so. And please feel free to ask questions as we go along. I'll be going through the training packet pretty much page by page, so let's get started on page number 2. General information. For training, all personnel that participate in procurement of any level are required to complete the State Procurement Office, SPO, procurement training classes prior to participating in any procurement. The SPO website, the spo.hawaii.gov, contains a list of mandatory and recommended classes. Most of us fall under the level 2 procurement. Most of these classes are now available on demand, so they're very easy to take when you have time. It also helps to retake classes every year or so to keep up to date on any changes. The websites, there are 2 websites that you should be familiar with. The State Procurement Office website, the spo.hawaii.gov. This website contains all procurement notices and solicitations with bid documents, awards, contracting forms, training, references, and much more. The state DOD website is dod.hawaii.gov. If you go to the staff offices, engineering office, and then click on the engineering picture down towards the bottom. On the top bar, you will find bids and awards. The bid documents for current projects, projects out for bid, contracts, awards, and closed bids will be in this section. And below the bar are forms for you to use. Okay, state procurement requirements. Contract procurement levels. Okay, one more. Sorry, trying to catch up with the slides. Okay. Contract procurement levels, goods and services projects over 100,000, professional services projects over 100,000, and construction projects over 250,000 must be processed as a formal contract. If your estimated project cost is just under the $100,000 or $250,000 levels, we recommend that you use a formal contract instead of a high pro, just in case the amount comes in higher. You don't have to start over again. All professional services must follow the same procedures of an evaluation and selection regardless of the estimated amount. After we receive the proposal form from the selected vendor, if the proposed amount is under the $100,000 level, you may be able to use a purchase order instead of a contract from that point on. Depends on the project. We'll get a little more into that later. A formal contract can also be used for projects under the 100,000 goods and services and professional services and the 250,000 construction limits. You may want to use a formal contract if the project has more complicated specifications or qualifications, or if you just need the extra protection. Contracts protect you from misunderstandings of what's required from the contractor or, excuse me, or vendor. A contract is the best way to protect you and the state. Here's a little comparison between high engineering and contracts or fiscal and small purchases. Goods and services over 100,000, contracts under 100,000, small purchase. Professional services, any amount. All start with contracting. Construction, contracts over 250, small purchases under 250,000. Okay, contract procurement, types of contracts. The 3 basic types that we use are goods and services, construction, and professional services. These refer to HRS Chapter 103D-305 and Hawaii Administrative Rules, HAR Chapter 3-122, Subchapter 7 for more on these types of projects. Contract procurement methods. There are 3 basic methods of procurement for contracts that we use. Number 1 is competitive sealed bidding, also called an IFB or invitation for bid, is normally used for construction or goods and services contracts. This method is used when you know exactly what you want. The award is based on the lowest bid and follows HRS 103D-302. For competitive sealed proposals, also called an RFP or request for proposal, this method is used when competitive sealed bidding is not practical. For example, when the primary consideration in determining award may not be price, whether the contract needs to be other than a fixed price type, and whether the specifications for goods, services, or construction cannot be sufficiently described in an IFB. In certain situations, a competitive sealed proposal may be used if it's determined that competitive sealed bidding is not advantageous, even though practical. The proposals for an RFP are evaluated on a point system. The award is based on the total proposal evaluation points and which proposal is in the state's best interest, and also follows HRS 103D-303. For professional services, this method is to select a firm to perform professional services such as architectural and engineering services, planning, accounting, environmental services, etc. The award is based on evaluation criteria and is awarded based on the evaluation points. Follows HRS 103D-304. The definition of professional services means those services within the scope of the practice of architecture, landscape architecture, professional engineering, land surveying, real property appraisal, law, medicine, accounting, dentistry, public finance bond and underwriting, public finance bond, investment banking, or any other practice defined as professional by the laws of this state, or the professional and scientific occupation series contained in the United States Office of Personnel Management's Qualification Standard Handbook. If you need more definition on that, call me. Okay, Hawaii Revised Statutes, Hawaii Administrative Rules. The Hawaii Revised Statutes, or HRS, is the law that we follow for these methods and can be found in HRS 103D, chapters 302, 303, and 304. The Hawaii Administrative Rules, or HAR, are the procedures that we follow to achieve the law and can be found under HAR 3-122. The HRS and HAR can be found on the State Procurement Office website on the top of the homepage under references. Any questions so far? Yes?
Kathy, can you give me an example of the competitive sealed proposal?
Example of a competitive sealed proposal. It basically, you use an RFP or competitive sealed proposal if you're not really sure exactly what you want. You know what the end product is that you want, but you're not sure exactly how to get there. So you put out the request for information, kind of like your Health and Human Services contracts that we used to do for those. They submit proposals on what they would do to get you the end product. And then you would evaluate those on a different point system, very long point system. You're welcome. Any other questions so far? Okay. Page number 5, basics of a project. The scope of work, or SOW specifications. When writing a scope of work specifications, make sure you describe exactly what you want the contractor to do. This describes the work to be done in detail and specifies the exact nature of the work or services to be done. Make sure all possible issues are covered. Scope of work or specifications should always include identify minimum requirements, allow for competition, list specific quantities if required, for example, 10 each, up to 10, minimum of 10 each. Specific location, building number or delivery locations. Deliverable schedule. Should list the specific deliverables describing what is due and when. For example, a draft is due 30 days after approval. Period of performance, how many calendar days, or if it's a service contract, list the exact time frame, for example, July 1 to June 30th. With or without options to extend for additional years, or for a professional services contract until construction is completed and accepted. Special requirements such as certifications for personnel, anything else not covered in the contract specifications, anything that you or the project requires, basically. Miscellaneous, there are many items that do not form part of the main requirements but are nonetheless very important to the project. They may seem minor, but being overlooked or forgotten could pose problems for the project. For example, contractor to provide their own dumpster. Forgetting these little things could cause change orders and, of course, additional cost to the contract. If you have plans or drawings, they should be in PDF file and only the pages that the contractor will need. The scope of work cannot be brand restrictive. or I should say should not be brand restrictive. However, you can list a brand as long as it's followed by equal or better. For example, contractor to spread Roundup or approved equal or better after erecting the fence. As a note, if only one brand name is listed, the designer must be cognizant that there are, in fact, other acceptable manufacturers and products available. Therefore, try to list at least 2 manufacturers. There should be a statement in the beginning of the scope of work stating that all brands and models identified in the scope of work are for comparison purposes only and shall be assumed to be followed by or approved equal or better, unless otherwise stated. If another brand will not be compatible, then you must state the reason why in your scope of work. For example, if you have a Mitsubishi AC units and need to replace a few of them, if another brand is not compatible with the Mitsubishi system, this must be stated in the scope of work. Be prepared to approve brands and models that are submitted for an addendum prior to bid opening. If you disapprove requests, you must have a good reason why it's disapproved. You always look at your scope of work from the contractor's view. Examples include, is it clear what you want? Are the goods, services, or project explained well enough that the contractor can prepare a bid? Does it list your minimum requirements? For example, if you're writing a scope for a shed, what are the dimensions? Do you want a shingled or metal roof? Did you list the minimum gauge of the metal? Is it to be corrugated, painted? What is the roof pitch to be? Overhang size, electrical, plumbing installed, number of outlets, windows. This is why it's very important to include all your plans and specifications. Are the plans clear? Do you have all the correct plans pages needed? Are there any contradictions within the plans and the scope of work? Double check all references in your scope always. Always make sure a contractor cannot come back and say, well, you didn't say you wanted the wall to be 4 inches thick. You just said to build an interior wall. You could end up with a very flimsy wall and you'd be stuck with it. Scope of work for professional services should always include the ability to do a supplement when needed, such as adding a phase, additional requirements, etc. For example, include a statement like, scope of work may be adjusted as needed after all investigations have been completed. Any questions on that so far? Okay. Okay, wage rate schedule. For non-construction projects that include positions that the state also has, for example, a janitor, a wage rate schedule will be included in the contract. This form will list the type of state position along with the salary schedule for that position. The vendor will be required to pay his employees equal to or greater than the state rate. For construction projects, the contractor will be required to pay his employees equal to or greater than the applicable wage rate schedule. The schedule can be found on the DLIR website, labor.hawaii.gov. Certified payrolls will be required to be submitted with each monthly invoice for the duration of the contract if a wage rate schedule is included or if Davis-Bacon wages are required. The CA will request copies of the certified payrolls periodically throughout the contract period. There have been problems in the past where the certified payrolls are not always being submitted with the invoices as they should be. Invoices should not be submitted to fiscal for payment unless the payrolls have been verified. It's required by the HRS, which is procurement law, that contractors pay their employees the correct wages. There are stiff penalties if they do not follow the procurement laws, so please remember this requirement when managing a contract. CRF fiscal year deadlines. For the state, for projects in state fiscal year 17 or beginning state fiscal year 18, the deadline is March 15, 2017. For projects in federal fiscal year 17 or beginning in federal fiscal year 18, the deadline is May 15, 2017. If something comes up after these dates, projects will be done on a case-by-case basis dependent on workload and time. Any questions? Okay, contract process. Contract request form, or CRF. The most recent form was revised November 18, 2016. This form can be found on the DOD website. All contract actions start with the CRF. This is an internal form created by the engineering office that, once completed, will ensure that all parties are in agreement and that this is the correct process for this project and to ensure the funding is in place. From the date it's received in the engineering office until it is signed and approved usually can take up to 2 to 3 weeks. You may want to go to page 10 and follow along on the CRF. The first section is contract type. The first line, check the box for which type of contract you need. The second line, check if you're using CIP money. If this is a renewal, put in what renewal number, and if it's a supplement, write in the supplement number. Note that the renewal number and the supplement number can be different numbers. Request your information, project manager, organization, phone, fax, and email. This is who we are going to call if we have questions. So it's basically the most knowledgeable project manager. Project name, create a title that's short but has enough information that it can't be confused with another project. For example, if the CRS just says exterior painting building 1, which building 1? There are a few different building 1s, different locations. It should read exterior painting for building 1, Wyalva. Something like that. If this is a supplement, put in the complete correct project title from the original contract, not the complete project title, the title from the original contract. Keep in mind that your project title may be different from the contract title. You got a question? Okay. Scope of work. The scope of work should be attached. If this is for a supplement, either attach a scope of the supplement or write in what will be done under the brief scope of work, or both. Contract supplement time should be in clear calendar days for construction or a time frame for services, for example, 1 year. For a supplement, this box is for the day's time for the supplement only, not the entire contract or entire project. Check the box if technical specs are included. Projected start completion date is your estimated dates of when you would like the project to run. If it has to be started after a certain date or completed by a certain date, write it in with a note. For example, project must be completed by December 1, 2017, or project cannot start until after July 1, 2017. If this section is left blank, then I will assume that you don't care when it starts or ends, as long as it runs for the contract time or number of days. If the project is a professional services contract, we recommend to leave the end date open. However, you may be required to list deliverable due dates. This should also be listed in the scope of work. Special instructions, note if CIP funds are being used or if connected with a prior CA number. For example, professional services contract for drawings and specs was, say, 1222-D. Put that in this section. If this CRF is for construction and we'll use those drawings, the C number will be CA-122-C for construction. That way we'll know for certain which contracts are part of the bigger project. Also list any other special requirements in this section. Brief scope of work, please list any licenses that may be required for this project and a short explanation of what will be done. For example, to replace lighting fixtures, contractor would need an electrical license. If licenses are required and you don't list them, we won't know that they're required, which may delay the bid opening by weeks, or could possibly have to rebid the whole project. Liquidated damages amount should be included in the special instruction section. LDs must be associated with an actual damage incurred by the state as a result of the contractor not completing the work on time, in accordance with the contract duration and any extensions of time granted by change order. Examples of damages. For one, the state is currently in a rented office space while the new office building is being renovated or constructed. If the contractor does not complete the work on time, the state would incur the cost of additional rent. Depending on the method of rental payment, this amount can be noted as a per calendar day or per month LD. So the damage would be the extra rent that we'd have to pay. The multipurpose room is booked months in advance. If a delay in the completion of the work causes a cancellation of an event, or it has to be moved somewhere that we would have to pay for, this amount can also be assessed to the contractor as an LD. However, in most cases, there is no actual damage to the state other than the cost necessary to administer the construction contract. DEX has determined their cost to be approximately $189 per calendar day or $270 per working day. We usually use the $189 per calendar day. Attached for your information is a copy of DEG's memo. I think it's 5 pages, pages 13 to 17, showing how they derived this amount. On our DOD projects, defining the LD amount should be discussed with the division representative to confirm if there are any actual damages that would be incurred. If there are no damages, I'd recommend we utilize the same administrative cost used by DAGs as noted above. For professional services contracts, we normally suggest that you waive the liquidated damages, of course, depending on the project. The financial data. Fill in the fiscal years. This is a fiscal year that the contract is to be basically encumbered in. If you're using federal and state, general or bond, or other, county or private, make sure you fill in which fiscal year those funds are coming from. The type of funds, check off which type you're using. CIP information, act year, item number, appropriation amount. A copy of the tables PQ&R and the allotment advice shall be attached if CIP funds are to be used. The CIP project title lists the correct CIP title. Funding codes, please write the complete fund code line. For example, S17G217, 7160 Roma, and then their project number, the AO78J1. If you're not sure which object code to use, contact the fiscal office. It's the project manager's responsibility to verify all funds with the fund manager and the fiscal office prior to submitting the CRF. This is very important. In the funding boxes, basic contract line, if this is an original contract, this will be your estimated cost line. For a supplement, the basic contract line will be the actual cost from the original contract. The supplement lines will be the actual cost for each supplement. For approvals, insert your fund manager office or title, for example, CFMO, OVS. Project number assigned, the box on the bottom right corner. For a new contract, this will be assigned by the CA. If this is a supplement, please type in the CA number with the supplement number, for example, CA-1234-S1. Any questions on the form? Unfunded projects CRF. If you have a priority project for funds and funds are not available at this time, you may submit a CRF with the scope of work, specifications, plans, and drawings so that when funds become available, the project can be executed on short notice. Follow the above procedures for a CRF with the following changes. The CRF is to be submitted with an unfunded project CRF request memo, the attached draft on page 18. On the funding code line, the PM shall note funds not available at this time. The CA will stamp subject to available funds above the project number block. The CEO will review an initial on the signature line. This hard copy will be kept in the contract folder. The CA will then create bidding documents for future advertisements for bid. When funds become available, the PM will email the CA with funding codes and the information. CA will route the CRF through the e-signature process for approval. When the CRF has completed the e-signature process, the CA will post a notice to bidders and start contracting and standard contracting procedures will follow. Any questions? Okay, and the next page is the contract request form. Page 11 is the kind of a breakdown explanation of the form. And then page 12 is a contract request form flowchart, kind of easier to follow. I'll tell you how long it takes for the different steps. Okay. And the next 5 pages after that is the DAGS memo that we talked about earlier. And page 18 is the a draft, the unfunded project draft memo. Anybody need to take a break? Take a break, 5-10 minute break? Okay, we'll be back in about 10 minutes.